What's up there, guys? Thanks for joining me this evening. It's Friday Night Live, and this is Fun Forever the Conscious. My name is Rick, and I'm going to be host for the evening. I'm just going to quickly share this about a few other places, see if we can get a few more people in here. I'm looking at 2 perhaps so far, 3 now. Brilliant. If any of you guys do want to share that elsewhere, I'm going to make sure that it is allowed publicly. Yep. It is now allowed publicly, so anybody who just want to share that, please drop that in any other groups where you think this might be useful. So for those of you who missed this, when I did a similar stream on Wednesday, I'm here to talk about some very, very important work that is being done right now by myself, and I think I've got a list of 7, maybe even 8 other potentials with whom I'm going to be having a secure video meeting with this time next week, Friday the 16th. The meeting's going to be starting at 8:30, and it will be starting at 8:30. I will be having the room opened at 8 o'clock. For those who are interested, and those who are interested are going to be notified via email, and there is also our Lawful Bank platform where I'm coordinating a few other people to get involved. So what exactly am I trying to do? I'm trying to set up a organization by which we can assert our will as the people. And I'm not talking about any overarching government that's going to be ruling over anybody, leering over anybody, or trying to assert authority over it. What I'm talking about is we, the people, all individually sovereign, gathered into communities that we agree upon, and managing our common lands collectively and our common services, the things that we all use, the things that we all need. Okay? I'm not talking about, again, anybody's personal private property being invaded here. What we choose to do individually on our own land is up to us. However, it must be accepted that we have common roads that we use, we have common woodlands that we use, we have common water that we use, we have common services that we all wish to have access to, and all I'm looking at doing is creating a method by which we can decide what that looks like and how we are going to put that together. It's very, very simple. If we, the people, want to assert ourselves as an entity, then we, the people, have to create that entity ourselves, and we have to all be willing to become part of it voluntarily. So that's basically what I'm here for. I'm going to first give a great big shout out to the following people, and I'm just going to quickly share a screen with you. So get the right one, and rebuilding a nation. Yeah. So again, this is the same one that I pulled up the other day. Let's get it nice and big for you in the middle. There we are. Okay, so this is where I've been tracking it in a public sense for people to get involved. If anybody does think that they are willing to be a coordinator for their county, that's provisionally how we've been looking to divide ourselves in terms of local areas of governance, and they could again be subdivided smaller if the people on those counties agree, in terms of parishes or whatever we want to call that subdivision. The idea is that the power flows from the people into these entities, and these entities only gain their power because we, the people, are gathered as part of those. That's the basic structure of it. So first, I'm going to give thanks to Mr. Stop saying Mr. This is one of those traps, isn't it? This is Mr. and Mrs. and Doctor are all titles of barony and offices of personhood. So that's something I need to eliminate from my general speaking. I want to first say thanks to Neil Warren in Bedfordshire. He's being an assistant coordinator for the assemblies of the United Kingdom, of Great Britain, whatever it is we want to call ourselves, England particularly, with him being an Englishman himself. In terms of local coordinators, I'm going to thank Andrew on Devon. He's agreed to be a coordinator for Devon, at least in verbal so far. Jackie Kay as well, in Durham. Big thanks to Jackie Kay. I think she might actually be on the stream right now watching. So thank you very much for joining me. We've got Richard W. in Lancashire. We've got Adam W. in Nottinghamshire, Stephen T. in Somerset, and Mark S. in Warwickshire. All have agreed to step into the role of coordinator. So I'm going to talk a little bit to you guys informally now about what the role of coordinator is. It's going to be discussed in a little bit more detail on the actual meeting, where people are going to have the opportunity to make their final affirmations in a formal sense as to whether they agree to go along with the principles of what we're trying to achieve here. But the role of the coordinator is basically a transient role. It's not intended to be a permanent position. The role of a coordinator is to bring into being the structure that the people of that county wish to see put in place. So if they want to have a peacekeeping force that is, going to protect people's property from other people, then or corporations or whatever entity, then it's the coordinator's job to see that there is people put in that position, at least initially, who can start to bring that into effect, with the idea that all the positions that we create as permanent offices would eventually be, elected positions and would be short-term positions. So immediately, the things I can sort of see is a coordinator needing to bring into effect would be someone willing to operate in a peacekeeping capacity. I'll go a little bit more detail as to what peacekeeping entails a little bit later. But the primary thing and the first thing they're going to be looking to do, and these are all roles that they will initially have to take on themselves as being the only man in the office block, running from office to office, putting different hats on, doing different jobs from time to time until he gets someone to, sit in that chair permanently, so to speak. The other role we're going to be looking at very importantly is going to be a recorder, the secretary, so to speak. And that person is going to be literally just there making sure that everybody who declares themselves as being part of the people's jurisdiction signs the relevant documentation. This is going to be what proves eventually to their system that we exist and we are real and we are very, very serious about what we're doing. That's where the dump truck comes in, and we deliver 10,000, 100,000, a million, 17 million, 60 million papers onto the doorstep of the court and say, dare you to say that we're not we the people, with 200 peacekeepers stood behind me saying, he does represent we the people. The two primary jobs initially that I believe people are going to need to want brought into existence are going to be the recorder. So we're going to need a way of the people in that county very easily declaring themselves to be free of the jurisdiction of the Crown and the monarchy and Parliament and all of that corporate nonsense that we don't want to be part of, and bringing them into our jurisdiction by voluntary declaration as per the 1914 British Nationality and Status of Aliens Act. So that's one that we can maybe have a look at in a little bit if people want to do so. So recorders, recording the documents, secretaries, whatever it is we want to call them, and peacekeepers. Now, peacekeeping is a little bit more broad, and this is, I'm actually very, very excited because I spoke to Kevin Fain from the American States Assembly on Wednesday evening after the last stream, and he was very, very supportive and was sort of giving me a little bit more nuanced detail about how this actually plays out, and he was talking about militias. Now, don't be scared off by that word. It doesn't necessarily mean, we're not talking about a standing army by any stretch of the imagination. But what we are talking about here is having a group of able-bodied men and women who are willing to contribute their labour in terms of, actually bringing themselves to whatever emergency needs to be attended to. So the militias aren't just as a standing force, so to speak. They're the people you would call if the river was going to burst a bank and you needed to get some sandbags in, or you needed to evacuate people. They're the people you would call if there was, any other sort of major natural disaster that needed dealing with. They're the people you would call if there was a fire. They're the people you would call if you needed, peacekeepers, literal, peacekeeping constables to actually turn up and be the muscle. They're the people who you would get in to clear away rubble. That's the standing force of able-bodied men and women willing to do the tasks that the community requires of them in an emergency situation. And that may or may not entail, learning how to handle firearms. Only we, the people, can decide that. I have my own opinions on the right to bear arms and how we should look to bring that into effect in our own communities. But that said, again, I am not the only person involved here. I am one of only a few people. I'm one of potentially 70 million people in this country that needs to start having conversations about those sorts of things and what that looks like on a ground level. Bear with me one moment. I'm getting a little bit thirsty now. So what I'm basically asking you guys for is, if you are in Bedfordshire, Berkshire, Buckinghamshire, Cambridgeshire, Cheshire, Cornwall, Cumberland, Derbyshire, Dorset, Essex, Gloucestershire, Hampshire, Herefordshire, Hertfordshire, Huntingdonshire, Kent, Leicestershire, Lincolnshire, Middlesex, Norfolk, Northamptonshire, Northumberland, Oxfordshire, Rutland, Shropshire, Staffordshire, Suffolk, Surrey, Sussex, Westmoreland, Wiltshire, Worcestershire, or Yorkshire, I would love to hear from you. Because I need someone on the ground, we need someone on the ground in that county to represent the people of that county and to bring into effect the local government of that county, the local system of self-governance. I'm going to need someone in Scotland who's going to start bringing together all of these Scottish counties: Aberdeenshire, Argyll, Ayrshire, Banffshire, Berwickshire, Bute, Caithness, Clackmannshire. I could go on. We've got 34 there. We need 34 people from Scotland to even begin putting this process together. And that is going to entail, real people getting up off their backside and saying, I'm now going to take personal responsibility for organising people. I'm not saying we have to tell people what to do. People will tell us what they want doing. Very clearly we can see from looking at the world around us right now that people want these politicians to know that we are not happy. And simply protesting or petitioning and doing things through their system is not going to work, because their system is designed to negate and ignore us. Their system treats us as the illiterate. That's why we've been taught to sign documents with this illegible cursive scribble, because that is not recognized as real English. That's recognized as gobbledygook. And it defines you as basically being illiterate. The way any document should be lawfully executed is with a printed autograph written in, the way we were taught at school. None of this joined up cursive nonsense, printed upper and lower case, capitalizing the beginnings of our names as we do. The way you were taught at school, with your thumbprint overlaying it. That is a true autograph. That's a true lawful autograph, not this signature scribble gobbledygook, which defines you as being illiterate, that defines you as being a ward of a state, defines you as being someone who is mentally deficient, is what they're doing. And that's how they co-opt you into this system. And that's why this will work, because this is using their rules to take us out of their system. This is saying I am now taking control of that which you are holding in trust for me, and it is now mine, and you have no more power over it. What is all the things that you think are yours, your car and your house, and all those other things, are merely held by you in trust of yourself. via the government. All right, and that's how it works, because you're defined as being incapable of taking control of your own estate. All you need to do is tell them that you are taking control of your own estate. And the way we're going to do that is by taking, by claiming another nationality that's not British, that's not that of a British subject, a serf, someone inferior and subject to the crown. Okay, so in the British Constitution, in the British system of governance, the way it's supposed to work is we give our sovereignty to the monarch and the monarch gives it back to us. That's how the constitutional contract originally worked. And that's normally what's put forward in the Queen's speech, in the oath that she takes when she's first coronated. Now, it's very interesting when you look into the actual terminology, the actual words that the Queen used in her oath. I was pointing to a very, very interesting video, which I will definitely put into some work in the future, by an Australian guy, when he points out the fact that when Queen Elizabeth II was repeating her coronation oath, she used the term insincerity, when she should have been saying in all sincerity. Because if you say insincerity, that could be insincerity, or it could be insincerity, being insincere. So we know these people like to use, political doublespeak to trip us up and cons of language, and there seems to be a very, very obvious one right there, which would mean that the Queen never actually was truly crowned, and we don't really actually have a monarch anymore. Second to that, part of the Queen's office is that she is, or the monarch is not able to then give that sovereignty, which we have gifted to her on our behalf. Okay, it was gifted to her. That's how the whole Constitution's supposed to work. Even in that case, she's not supposed to cede that sovereignty to anybody else, and she's already ceded it to multiple different powers. It was ceded from the end of the 1600s, late 17th century, when the Remembrancer was put into Parliament. The Remembrancer is the one who is ultimately able to, make any decisions on what the final laws are, so therefore the Remembrancer is the supreme sovereignty, the way it's been set up since the 1600s. And that's the influence of the Crown City of London right there. Now, I'm only generalizing here. It's really, really important that, I get this across to you. I'm not, I'm no specialist on any particular subject. If anything, it's science. I've said this before, I'll say it again. If anything, it's science and sort of deep spirituality and philosophy. But that doesn't mean I've not taken some time to study, and I've got enough of a general idea of the way the whole systems works. So if I'm a little bit fuzzy on some of the details, I am totally willing to be corrected, and on terminology. I'm no legal eagle, so to speak, though I am reaching out to one. Very interesting looking young man who's been posting some very cool videos recently, talking about various things to do with common law. And although he's studied and got his qualifications via the bar, he seems to be fairly aware of a lot of the corruption and stuff that's going on. So it'd be very nice to get involved with him. Anyway, so we've got all these different places here that I'm going to need coordinators for. I can't do it all. We can't do it all. Six people's not enough. We're looking at 80 plus, I think, when you add it all up, that we're going to need to cover the whole of England, England, Northern Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. Let's get me back up on the main screen now. Stop sharing this. So you've actually got me to look at rather than a blank screen. So yeah, like I say, I've been gathering together individuals who are willing to be representatives, who are willing to step into that role of coordinator and reach out to people to help them to understand how we've been conned, and to show them the way out of that con, and to show them that they're, more importantly, to make them aware that there is another choice, that this isn't just something we have to be subject to. We have a choice. There is a way out, and it can be done. We just need to assert that. Okay, I've been talking for 20 minutes straight now, so I'm going to take a little break and I'm just going to head over to the chat and see if anybody has anything over there. If you do have any questions, then please drop them down in the comments section below. It looks like we've got one of our American brothers over here. Jackie K, big thumbs up to you. Thank you for joining me. This is Jackie K on Durham. She is going to be our county coordinator for Durham. So thank you very much for joining us. Nice to see an actual face in there that I can show off to people. Anthony, is it Joaquin? I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. It says militia means the people. Let's bring this up. Militia means the people. The lamestream media, etc., has turned it into something else. And yes, very, very right. Kevin was pointing that out to me last night. I think Anthony Joaquin is part of the American States Assembly. Please correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, Anthony. Yeah, my friend Kevin, I think he's on Missouri. I might be wrong there, but I think he's on Missouri. One of the peacekeeping task force coordinators was, again, letting me know the details of it. And that is, like I say, it is a standing... It is basically a gathering of able-bodied men and women who are willing to do the labour required by the people of their community, whatever that might be in an emergency situation. If the road's falling apart, they go and repair the road. If a wall falls down and needs rebuilding, they go and rebuild the wall. If a river's going to flood, they go and dam the river up and help people evacuate. And they're the general all-purpose, emergency response team, so to speak. The peacekeeping task force itself extends a little bit further than that, but that's what the militia are as part of the peacekeeping task force. They're that, group of able-bodied people. Thank you very much, Joaquin. He is one of the American States Assembly. Joaquin, are you? Do you hold office, or are you just a national? I say just a national, like that's not an amazing thing in the first place. It'd be nice to be able to declare myself as a national. It's just making sure at the moment I want to get this first meeting done so that we're all agreed on this part of the paperwork. I want to get rid of that United Kingdom, perhaps just the nations of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. But again, I want the first people through the door to all be happy with that. Moving forward, because that's what these are the documents that we're going to have to present to people, and I'm not the boss, the people are the boss, so I need to speak to the people who have gathered with me in order to make sure they're happy with that before we push forward with it. The one document I know is not going to change because it is pretty much self-explanatory is the witness testimonies and affirmations. Yeah, that's just basically like what you have done for your passport. And the person, I suppose they are a lawful person, aren't they? If they're operating as the nation recording secretary, you see that there. The person who wants the man or woman in that photo can actually be the one who acts as recording secretary and witnesses the document, which is great, because that just means you need you and the two witnesses who are willing to do it. And then once you've got those two witness statements, you can then meet up with another coordinator and get that one signed. And then you're free. That's the paperwork process. It's very, very simple. There are things we can then do beyond that to further assert ourselves. So as a business owner, you could, in theory, if you wanted to fight that battle, this is, again, that the beauty of this is that it leaves up to the individual national, how much pressure they want to then assert with their own sovereignty. Sovereignty is about taking responsibility for yourself, after all. And that means that everyone involved can make that decision in themselves, like how much am I willing to fight this? How much am I willing to put myself out there? How much am I willing to give to the community? And some people will give more than others, and some people will be willing and in a situation to risk more than others. But eventually, as we become more organized, and those militias that I was talking about, these standing groups of able-bodied men and willing to act, rather than just talk and push paperwork around like I'm doing at the moment, trying to get this structured. I mean, hell, I'll be part of my militia. I don't mind. I'm not running it though. I've got too much else on my plate. I need a militia commander for that. But once we've got those bodies in place, then, you know, people will feel more comfortable to start asserting themselves, because we can say, if, you know, so-and-so bailiff or so-and-so police person does turn up trying to assert their authority over you and give you a hard time, then we'll have 200 of our militia stood outside the front door, or stood around their car, or whatever it, you know, that takes to resolve the situation peacefully as possible. Of course, you know, knowing that we may have to defend ourselves, but not seeking that. And this is where we're going to need, in militias, there's so much room for so many different people that we're going to need ex-firefighters, we're going to need ex-forces, we're going to need ex-police people, we're going to need ex-builders or current builders, we're going to need, you know, bricklayers, we're going to need all sorts of people able to offer their own specific skill set, because a lot of what goes on with these jobs is generally the labor. All you need is one or two people who actually know what they're doing to direct people to make sure it happens properly. And if you've just got a good eclectic, you know, collection of able-bodied men and women who are willing to act as necessary, then fantastic. I mean, you know, the other sort of people I've thought at is security personnel, those who work for door companies, or martial arts instructors, particularly martial arts instructors, because they'll have the understanding of not only self-defense, but how to avoid ever being in a position where you've got to defend yourself in the first place. So there's an awful lot of scope in that militia group to bring all sorts of people in and give them, you know, a job to do. And it's not necessarily something they have to do every day. And then alongside that, you've got all the ancillary support services. If you've got a militia team out on location doing something important for however long it takes, then you're going to want to be able to rotate people in and out of that militia team. You're going to want to make sure that they've got logistics, that they've got food, they've got water, that they've got entertainment, that they're kept nice and warm. You know, there's all sorts of logistics and support. And this is where we come into the idea of what being a body politic means. And a body politic is a group of people who organize their own affairs. Now, there's three things you really, really need to be a body politic. And one is to be a group of people who are agreed on a given way of working, a given way of operating between yourselves. Yeah. And you need to be able to marshal manpower, and you need to be able to marshal resources. And that's it. So if we, the people, can come into entities called Lancashire County, or called Nottinghamshire County, or called England, or called Greater Manchester, called Tyne and Wear, called whatever we want them to be called, and however big or small we want them to be, that's fine. But we've got to be able to prove that we are an actual organised and recognisable body politic. We can, you know, we are all agreed on a way of working. We are all able to marshal manpower and resources as required. That's what we need to be able to prove for this to be legitimate, for people to take this seriously, for us to be able to wake up the sheeple normies. Yeah, is those of us who are awake to this need to stop arguing over the semantics of the problem and just start actioning the solution. Because regardless of, you know, any opinions of what's ultimately at the top of the food chain, we all know that they operate through the banking system and they gain our tacit agreement through the system of corrupt law. The rest is all semantics. Like, if we can all agree on that, then let's put the rest of it aside. We'll figure out those details later, and let's just start working on the solution. Let's stop arguing amongst ourselves, because that's what these people are counting on. If we could agree on the basics, that's what matters. You believe what you want. Believe it's reptiles. I don't care. Believe Jesus was a demon sent from another planet. I don't care. You know, we could be on the Earth could be a disc on the back of 4 turtles riding an elephant for all I care at this point. It's all semantics. There are a bunch of scumbags who are subjugating the planet, and they're doing it with our tacit agreement. And the only way we get out of that is if we put aside any petty differences that don't recognize that ultimate, issue, and organize ourselves. So, I don't know, maybe you don't agree with anything that I've said here. Fine. Maybe you don't agree with anything I've said about the way we're organizing ourselves. Fine. That's okay. That's good. Brilliant. Come and talk to me about why you don't agree. Come and become a coordinator. Yeah. Represent your group of people in your land. Yeah. If you think most people think that way, you represent that in your land. And as people come in, they can tell you their opinions, whatever. And you come and tell me why that doesn't work. And you come and tell the rest of us why that doesn't work. And let's together come to something we can all agree on will work. I might have very strong and passionate opinions about things, but I am far from immovable by any stretch of the imagination. I just want to have that conversation, and I want a system by which we can sort it out. If I've got something wrong, let's figure out what I've got wrong. Let's get to what's right and what we can agree on. And that is the absolute key. Absolute key. We have to all agree on it. Anything we put in place, we have to all agree on. And that will necessarily make it minimalist, and that's brilliant, because nature does not waste its time with overly complicated details. It keeps things fairly simple. The interaction of those various rules might produce a more complex effect, but ultimately you can generally boil down an awful lot of systems to very simple mathematical interactions. And yes, that produces a beautiful complexity when it's layered and nested and surrounds itself and integrates with itself, and that produces this amazing tapestry we call the universe. Fantastic, yeah. But nature is not wasteful. It does not do more than it needs to. Very simple rules. That's what we're looking to build this on. Okay. Been talking again an awful lot. Let's go over to the comments. Anthony Joachim, yes, he is a national, and he is also training to be an SIA coordinator. SIA. I would be interested to know what SIA actually is. So please, let me know what SIA is all about, Anthony. I'd be really interested to sort of explore that another level of what's going on over there in America. Ark Ash liked and subscribed. Big thumbs up to you. Thank you very much for joining me this evening. I hope you're still on the stream right now. Jackie K, agree with everything you're saying, Rick. Thank you very, very much. I'm not out here fishing for agreement. I'm fishing for convention. So convention. We have convention between me and Jackie. That doesn't mean that convention can't change, but that only changes if you're involved with the conversation and you have a voice like Jackie does. Jackie K on Durham. Thank you very much. Ark Ash also agrees. Ark Ash, are you from somewhere within this island we call Great Britain, or one of the ancillary islands? Are you a Northern Ireland? Where is it that you're from? Are you interested in being a coordinator? Jackie K, just wish we could get more volunteers like yesterday. Yes, always fishing for them, and they will come in time. They say build and they will come. What I'm really, really concerned about, Jackie, more than numbers right now, is getting people who are quality. I would rather wait a couple of months for someone who is really serious about this and will give it the time and the degree of grave consideration that it actually truly needs. I'm not messing about here. We're not messing about. We're deadly serious. The problem is that serious, and we need to be that serious about solving it. So would love to get lots of people involved, But ultimately, they're no use to me if they can't use a computer in a reasonable way, can't maintain communications, and aren't committed to the cause, because otherwise we end up with dropped threads that someone else has to pick up. And I'd rather have someone who's going to stick it out until we can get someone, at least until we can get someone suitable to replace them. I'm not expecting people to commit to this as a lifetime thing. That's exactly the point of this. It's a transient position. We're all here to find people to make our work easier, and to create something that people can literally just pick up. We've done our term, we've served our nation for a bit. Now it's someone else's turn to step into that role and do that job. But again, with the first of us in it, it's an indeterminate lifespan. We don't know how long it's going to take. We don't know when we're going to find the people who are willing to take over those roles. And we do ultimately all have livings to make. I still have to go out and bring some pennies in, so I've got an internet connection on which to have this conversation, and I've got a phone with which to keep in touch with everybody and to call people and have these conversations with people about. So I've still got to go out and make money, which means this is all done in my spare time and for free. Speaking of which, if you feel moved to assist me in making this whole thing easier, I do accept donations over on my WordPress site, and that's fanfarefortheconscious.wordpress.com. Don't feel any pressure. I'm not going to carry on pushing it. Just mention it. Anthony Joaquim, sign in America. Akash is still there. Fantastic. So yeah, I'm going to bring this up. Anyone from America who's watching on the stream right now, if you are not involved with the American States Assembly, you need to head over to signinamerica.com. Also, if you are in England, Ireland, Scotland, or Wales, or anywhere else indeed in the world, and you want to see what this process looks like, please head over there as well. You've got Anna von Reitz's site as well, annavonreitz.com, where there's loads of information, and the AmericanStatesAssembly.net is another great one. It gives you an idea of what we, the people in America, are doing to put this together. And a lot of what I'm doing right now is provisionally this whole idea of dividing us up into, I'll just share it with you one more time so we can quickly have a look. This whole idea of dividing the nation up into 4 individual nations, each divided up into counties, and which each may then be subdivided again, is built on the same model that the Americans are using for their states' assemblies. Ark Ash is from Durham as well. Amazing. Amazing. Jackie K. Looks like we may have our second potential member of the Durham County Convention. That's fantastic. And I'm not going to share all the chat here, but Jackie and Ark Ash are having a nice little chat there. And I'm just going to share this one because I like that. Yes, we are very serious about this. Okay. This, as I've said before, I want us to be that organised that when one of us, if they do ever try and challenge any of our representatives as being actual representatives of we the people, I want them to be able to call in the dump truck full of papers, which gets dropped on the court steps. Yeah, that's what I want to see. Us to be that well prepared. Just a quick call. Yeah. All those papers, get them on the truck, get them down to this courthouse right now. Fantastic. Okay. That's what it needs to look like when we do get challenged. Not as just us spitting a lot of words and using a lot of rhetoric, however true it might be. These people live in a world of paperwork, and if we want to prove to them that we are who we say we are, then we need that paper chain that's going to make it so obvious to them that we are who we say we are that they can't even pretend to try and deny it. Mouse Nation. Right, I'm just going to take a quick drink. I'm going to share Mouse Nation up with you. This is someone I've not seen yet. Mouse Nation says, evening, I agree we have a serious problem, but honestly not really sure I understand your plan. Okay. Thank you very much for that comment, Mouse. I'm going to spell it out for you. So, we the people have a problem with this government. And it doesn't go away when we petition. It doesn't go away when we individually write letters to MPs. It doesn't go away when we protest in the streets. The only way it goes away is if we prove to them that we don't need them. And more to the point, we prove to ourselves and our brothers and our sisters and our mothers and our fathers and our best friends and our pets that we don't need the government. And we do that by putting together our own system of self-organizing, whereby it is so well organized and so well documented, the entity that we have put together, that it is undeniable to anybody that we represent the people and we are self-governing. And we have the means to police our own, we have the means to look after our own, and we have means to marshal our own as necessary. So that means organizing, okay? And the first step to organizing is getting people to agree on a very basic principle. And the first principle I want everyone to agree on is that every single mature man and woman is completely responsible for their own actions and is free to do what they will based on their understanding of these three maxims: cause no harm, cause no loss, and commit no fraud. Okay? If you can agree on those three basic principles and you are willing to help organize we the people in a manner whereby we can then assert this, that we don't need them anymore, then I would love to hear from you. I would love you to email me at fanfarefortheconscious@gmail.com, because we, the people, who've agreed that this is the way we want to function, with every single individual sovereign first, before anything else, we're trying to figure out how we're going to organize that. Because every individual on their own cannot do anything as a single solo individual against the forces that we're facing. The only way each of those sovereign individuals can assert that is if we gather together under a set of common rules. The job of the coordinators is to establish what those common rules are, okay? To establish what we, the people, think are the common things that we all share and all make use of. Could be a health service, could be a police service, could be a fire service, could be whatever. And to bring those entities into being, to self-organize. The definition of self-organizing is to do the job yourself. So that's what I'm talking about. That's what the plan is. And at the minute, yes, it is necessarily fluffy and necessarily vague, because I am only one person and we've not had those conventions yet. We've not had those gatherings of people talking about this problem seriously and looking to action solutions rather than complaining about the problems. So yes, at the minute, it is all quite fluffy and it is all quite vague, and it is all quite fluffy and it is all quite vague because we have never had that in this country. We never had a Declaration of Independence. We never had a "We the People" written on paper. The Magna Carta was the document of the barons, and the Charter of the Forest was the document of the freemen, which is really loose. There's no big stack of paperwork attached to that document of the freemen to say who the freemen were. What I'm talking about is us having a document like the Declaration of Independence, but then being able to back that Declaration of Independence up with every single person who agrees to it having written on a piece of paper that they agree to it. And we live in a world where we have the technology to make that happen in a way that it could never have happened in the late 18th century. That's the point that I'm making, that we need to figure out a way that we, the people, assert ourselves. And thank you very much for your question, Mouse. I do hope that answered it. And if you identify any problems with what I've just put in front of you, this idea of organizing ourselves into nations, which are composed of counties, which are composed of sovereign individuals, with the sovereignty always going from the people to the county level, to the nation level, to the, union, federation, whatever you want to call it. I know I'm not even going to get involved with deciding that yet. I need to bring England together before I even think about deciding how England and Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland are going to work together. Because if the people aren't sovereign, the county can't be sovereign. And if the county isn't sovereign, then the nation can't be sovereign. And if the nation isn't sovereign, then the union can't be sovereign. It has to flow from the people who live on the land. Again, I hope that helps. If you do have any further questions, I would love to be involved, and I am actually going to put together a Jitsi Meet at the end of this, which I'm going to hopefully be closing the stream down in about 15 minutes, thereabouts, and getting the Jitsi room up for anybody who does actually want to have a talk, have a conversation about this, because that's what a convention is about. It's about having conversations. It's about coming to a common understanding, a common convention. Think about that word convention. That's how we do things as a people. We do things by convention, by common agreement. That's just how it works. And that's come from, years of evolution of behavior to the point where there's a way of doing things that just works best for everybody. And that's just come about. I'm talking about convention in a more formal setting, in a written setting. We talk about having an unwritten constitution, a living constitution in this country. What basically that means is the details aren't fleshed out enough. That's all it means. And it means that they can manipulate and mutate it however they see fit, the parasites. Right, let's have a look. Back over to the comments. SIA is basically getting the credit back that it is due to us as nationals, and in turn bring down the new US national debt. Fantastic work, Anthony. So is that bringing it back and turning it into gold backed money? Sure, fiat has some limited usability at the moment, but I think that's going to be fairly transient as things move in the direction they're moving. And I personally, wouldn't want to build our own currency system on fiat. How is that going to work? Is that coming back into gold or what? Well, yeah, very, very exciting to read that. Let's just have a quick look down. So Mouse Nation says, so to enact common law. It depends on what you choose to call common law. And this is the really sticky thing, because as a word, as a phrase, it makes sense. Common law, the law of the common people, right? The law that's common to everyone. That kind of makes sense. But the way the system defines common law now is that it's a combination of statute law and judgments made by judges, so precedents. So the law is not written in a particularly, it's written in quite a fluffy fashion with some layers for interpretation, and the common law is considered to be a mixture of that statute and how it's interpreted by the judges. So it's not really a law of the common people. I mean, if we want to call what the law that we create the common law, then that's fine. But we'd have to call it the common law rather than common law. Because if you said common law in one of their courts, they would take it to mean statute and judgments combined. So we've got to be really careful. And this is where they're so sneaky, because the way the scammers worked is they've redefined words. That's one of the main ways that they've manipulated previous legislation is they've changed the meaning of words to expand or contract certain definitions and con us, basically, because our understanding of what a word means isn't the same as their understanding of the word means. So we do have to be careful with common law. If by common law you mean the law that's commonly understood by the people, then absolutely, absolutely. In America, I think they call it public law, which I quite like the terminology of, not only because it steers us away from this establishment idea of what common law is, but also because, as far as I'm concerned, there's two different domains that you operate within. You operate within the private domain, which is within your mind, on your property, in your car, in the private space. That's the private domain. But the other domain that you operate in is the public domain. The idea being that you're the sovereign who has the rules over the private domain, as long as you don't infringe any other living being's sovereignty. And the public law is the law of the public space, anything that goes on outside of that private domain that you can all agree on are the common rules. Yeah, so we can call it the common law if we want, or we can call it the public law, or whatever. But again, we need the convention. We need the convention of the people to put this and to enact it. There's no point me and you, Mouse, talking about it and coming to an agreement between just the two of us, because then it's just a convention of Mouse and Rick. It's not a convention of the people of a given. The people is always defined by who agrees to it, right? I hope I'm getting across to you. Let's carry on. So credit only. Okay, yeah. So it's the positive side of the balance. Yeah, I understand that. So when you have the live birth record and the birth certificate, the credit balances with the live birth record and the birth certificate gets the debt side of the balance. I totally understand how that works, for sure. What my question was more about was how that money is then going to be. I mean, are you going to continue to issue money in America the same way the fiat system is, without any direct attachment to anything physical? Or is the money that you guys issue, is that going to be gold backed? And how do you see this fiat currency then gaining relevance with the currency that we, the people, issue? Because one of the questions I have about money and stuff like that is that our system of currency, our system of exchange and credit, should we call it, our way of crediting people for their good works done, has to reflect our philosophy. It can't be built on this idea of scarcity or the idea of some people having more power or more right to create that money than other people. That's why I've always advocated for the idea of a time-based currency, because ultimately everybody has time expend on useful activities, and if money is just a record of our good works, then why should not be a record of the amount of effort engaged in terms of time invested, because that is the closest measure we have of sweat equity. And sure, an hour of a less skilled person is maybe not as valuable as the hour of a more skilled person, but if that person is not only doing the job but learning how to do the job, are they then also not gaining a body of skills which will then later serve society? If we expand our thinking out a little bit further. Just a few thoughts on money in general. I'm not sure how far you guys have got on that. I have heard lots of talk of gold and silver backed currency, which, I mean, if that's what everybody wants to go with, I am not that finicky. I would rather just see something that's within our power and that there is a direct correlation to. Though I do have issues with gold and silver and other commodity-backed currencies, which I'm quite happy to discuss on another time. I like this one. This is going to be quite interesting. William Woodford says, I know this will seem controversial, but I think what is needed is a form of organised unions of regional conferences via the trade unions within the UK. I'm not sure if I get exactly what you're saying there, but I do think there is definitely room in this system, because trade is going to be a big part of it. Trade, not commerce, trade is going to be a big part of how we interact as people freely without the need for, big brother, big daddy government leaning and leering over our shoulder and wagging his fingers at us. We do need to have conventions amongst trades about how things are done. So there is definitely room within this system to have trade conventions as well. And this is I'm so glad we've got into this. Beyond the original actual land entities that are managing the land and the soil and the water and the air that we breathe and all the things that we require for our daily lives, there is, going to be room for those trade conventions as well, whereby a trade can come to an agreed method by which they operate for the sake of the safety of the workers and for the sake of the quality of work. And there's no reason we can't have that. And yes, I think that's going to be a very important living part of what eventually becomes the structure of our self-governance, for sure. So yeah, I don't actually think that's very controversial at all. There is going to be a large element of free trade involved, not free commerce, free trade involved. Though by the same context, I personally, and again, willing to, discuss this in a convention setting, believe that there are certain industries that need to be protected from greed because they are essential for the lifeblood of people. And I think like healthcare services and utilities and food production networks, they need to be shielded from profiteering, okay? Not from making a living off these things. I'm not saying the people that do this shouldn't be able to, that do this very important work shouldn't be credited for their work and shouldn't then live, comfortable lives because of it. That's not at all what I'm saying. But there are certain industries I think that have to be shielded from greed. Because when you mix profit and healthcare, you get what we've got now, where it's beneficial to the people dealing in the healthcare to make you ill or to not cure you. Does that make sense? And we've got to be very, very careful with that, because in theory, a good doctor never works, because all the people who he looks after are all well because they know how to look after themselves. So we've got to be really, really careful with this. And, if we build our houses well enough, then perhaps we won't need as many houses to be built because they won't be falling down all the time. What we've got to create is a system which will allow people to work less and have more. So we don't be in a position where, when I was talking about this idea to people, like, if you just let everyone do what they want, then, there won't be enough jobs to go around. And I was like, well, how ridiculous an idea is that? Why don't you just have people doing less work? Like, if you told that doctor instead of doing 40 hours a week, he could do 20 hours a week and still be credited because he lives, and we'll get someone else to do the other half of that work because we've got excess of people and that just kind of makes sense, then why not? And when you take away the financial incentive to do a given job, not to work, but to do a given job, then what you get is the people who care most about that particular field, because they do it because they want to do it, not because it makes them good money and they get good holidays or whatever and they get prestige, but because it's something they're passionate about, something they want to do. So when you get people like that in a job, then they better themselves and they are always striving to offer the best service that they can, because they're doing it because they love it. And when you love something, you want to be the best that you can at it. Ask anyone who, any major sports person, anybody who actually really hand on heart loves their job and can't wait to get there in the morning. They want to be the best that they can be at that job. So that's my thoughts on money and trade unions and all the rest of that. Wow, this has gone on. There are credit unions in the UK in most towns and cities. Yes. Yes. This is another great thing that we can look to do, is try and get our money out of this banking system. I'm not saying everyone should throw away fiat tomorrow. Far from it. We should use fiat to trade where we can. But when I'm talking about making our own money, I'm talking about it being something that runs in parallel. So let's imagine we've got, 100, let's say in my town of Didsbury, the few thousand people that live here in Didsbury, let's say 100 of them are nationals. I should be able to trade with those nationals in a currency that keeps us away from their fiat system of trade. I should be able to trade with them with our own currency, and it should run parallel. And very, very much the way, say, Bitcoin runs parallel to fiat sterling at the moment in this country. You can pay with Bitcoin or you can pay with this. They can run side by side. They don't have to be fully, necessarily integrated. And that might happen over time, and probably should happen over time, that our currency will gain a value in sterling or in Bitcoin or in whatever crypto system. But, we don't have to throw one out and bring the other one in. It's not a case of that. They can run concurrently, and one can take over time. So, in terms of our fiat, we should definitely be looking to get them into credit unions and out of the hands of the big banks. That's a really, really important thing. And as soon as I can actually get that organised myself, I will be getting my main accounts all with a credit union. Let's have a look at what else there is to say. Really, really, really pleased with all the interaction tonight, guys. Thanks very much for joining me, all of you. Let's see what else we've got. John Overkill says true. I'm not sure what you're saying true to, John, but thank you. Jackie K agrees with William Woodford. Definitely. Mouse Nation says, oh, I see. I think we need land and to live on it. Yes, for sure. And this is, if Neil actually gets an opportunity to watch this, he'll very much appreciate that this has been brought up. This is one of the things that is going to come quite early, I think, once we get to the point where we have militia groups together which are significant enough that the people of the county feel confident enough that they can start to actually assert themselves and go and take a piece of land. And I would suggest they pick something that is either government or church land, and they put them on notice, written notice, that we the people are now in session as the lawful government of this land, and we no longer require their services. Their land, the land upon which they are working and operating and living at the moment, is actually owned by we the people, and we want it back. And we give them 30 days notice, and then we give them 14 days notice, and we give them 7 days notice, and then we turn up at the door with our militia, our peacekeeping task force, and say, let's be having you. We have put you on notice. This is all lawful. We the people are lawfully assembled. We the people represent ourselves, and we the people do not accept you peddling your trash here on our land. Please vacate those offices so we can use them for our lawful purpose of governing this piece of land. If they don't, then we look at other steps. But that's the process that we need to ultimately come to the point where we can actually take this land, and to the point where if anybody tries to take that off us, we can defend it. And that doesn't necessarily mean violently. I would rather it not come to that, and I'm sure most people would rather it doesn't come to that. But as they say, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And that's going to mean being assertive, which is not necessarily violent, that's not necessarily aggressive, but that is, forceful. Because these people have been used to being in power for too long. And as long as, I think, honestly, as long as we make this ironclad in terms of getting this paperwork spot on and getting people very, very organized and very, very aware of how we're setting this up, and very, very upfront and apparent that we are peaceful and we are just trying to self-organize. We're not trying to, if people will carry on living under the British Crown, fine, but don't get in our way. because this is our land, and British Crown is only here as long as we allow it to be here. It is that simple. And as more and more people come over, not only does it empower us, but it disempowers them. Us having our own system of currency allows us to take our labour out of their system. If we can start paying, we get to the position where there are enough people in a given county that we can actually start looking after our nationals sustainably, then we set up our own farm and we make sure that we look after our communities. We set up our own water process, and we go and claim a bit of land and we build a community if that's what we want to do. We don't even necessarily have to go and take over one of their buildings. We could just go and assert ourselves on another piece of land separately if that's what we want to do. But again, for all of this to happen, we've got to first have the convention, and we've got to first have the conversations, and we've got to have a system by which we can say, yes, that's what we all agreed to do. I'm not just talking about people who are unaffiliated now. If you're involved in any movement of resistance, you have a skill, you have a passion that we can put under one umbrella, and we can give you the space and give you the support to really pursue that which excites you the most, that which you find most pressing to deal with. If it's the banks and the bailiffs, brilliant. We need those people. If it's Monsanto and the scumbags poisoning our food, brilliant. We need people to put them on notice. We need militia bodies willing to stop them, bringing poison into our fields and polluting our land. These are all things that need to be done, and nobody would ever deny all these things need to be done. It's just bringing them under that umbrella. So we can say, you see those people over in that field doing that, they're us. You see those people over there in that town doing that, they're us. You see those people over there in that town doing that, they're us as well. You see us, we're us. We're all the same. It's all one entity. We all want you gone, get gone. It's on paper, you've had it in writing, what are you still doing? Make it that obvious. We're not just turning up outside Parliament and waving a bunch of signs. We're more organised than that. We're not just complaining and whinging, saying, oh, you're not doing it right. We're firing the cleaner and cleaning our house ourselves. We're firing the manager and managing the shop ourselves. We already do it. We already do all the important work that needs doing in this world and in this nation. The bankers do nothing. The politicians do nothing. The big CEOs at the top of the chains, they do nothing. They're parasites. And we just need to collectively cut them out. So I'm going to very quickly go through the remains of this chat, and then I am going to wind down because it is 10:10. William Watford says, in Totnes, Devon, the town use their own currency. Not sure what it's called though. Yeah, and this is something that occurs in a lot of different places. Bristol have a Bristol pound. So you can have complementary currencies that run alongside. I believe the Bristol pound is actually a direct exchange. Like a Bristol pound is the same as a pound sterling. But what it does is it keeps that money within the community and keeps that cycling at a local level rather than allowing it to bleed out into the greater world, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it does help to enrich the local community first rather than, and it encourages people to buy local and support local businesses, which is again something very, very important. So yeah, these things have been done before, and I think it was in Ithaca, I think in America they might have mountain hours, was it called? I'm not sure. But they have actually trialed a time-based currency, and it was very competitive. I believe it's still actually working now. You probably wouldn't have heard of it. And there was also the way the big man with the toothbrush moustache managed to get Hitler. I've just said it now. The way he managed to get Germany out of their Great Depression before the Second World War and get them into a position where they had the ability to build a war machine capable of taking on a whole whole continent was because he made every Deutschmark worth 1 hour. So he created effectively a time-based currency. And that bootstrapped the German economy to the point where they were able to enact Blitzkrieg. And whatever else you say about the man with the toothbrush moustache, like, that's proof that time-based currency is incredibly powerful, because it makes everybody's labor equally valuable. And if anybody here says there's a job in society that doesn't need doing, let's try taking it away and see how long society lasts. If it doesn't need doing, fair enough. It's just not bother doing that job then. But if it needs doing and you want it done properly, then you're going to want someone with experience and someone willing to do it. And some jobs aren't. You value someone's time in doing a job simply because you don't want to do it. Not necessarily because it requires more skill than you, but because it requires a sort of activity that you don't want to be involved in. And that's what you need to respect in other people's work, that they're maybe doing work that you wouldn't want to do. And if there's anything that people really don't want to do, then surely we can find some way of automating it or making it easy. We have modern technology, right? And again, this is not, I'm not talking about going into caves or living in yurts or mud huts here. Like, we've got 200 years of industrial revolution technology there on our doorstep. Let's use it. Let's not let it go to waste, right? Winding down and skipping over some drama in the group. Yeah, just skipping over all the drama in the group there. I'm going to wind this down right now, and I am going to set up my Jitsi Meet. For anybody who does want to get involved, go to meet.jit, that's JIT.si, and the room name is going to be Radical Praise Guide Continually. I'm going to pop that in the chat for you now, guys. So that is on the meet.jit.si room. If you head over there now, Radical Praise Guide Continually. I will be there in the chat to meet anybody who wants to talk about a little bit more stuff in detail. Take care of yourselves, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Don't forget to stay free, think free, and act free. And as always, see you next time.